You're watching NewsX. My name is Vineet Malhotra, and it is that time of the day where we talk about the economy specifically. Over the last 5 to 6 months, we have on a regular basis spoken to a number of stellar minds and in fact come upon hordes of ideas which in fact have the propensity to transform the Indian economy and take it to the next level. In fact, there have been discussions about where we have gone wrong and what we have done right. We have spoken about Atmanirbharta. We have spoken about how China, in fact, needs to be decoupled. That umbilical cord that we have shared with China perhaps needs to be snapped. And once again, we are here in front of you in association with the business world to speak to certain minds who will, in fact, tell us how they are doing in terms of their business and how the Indian economy is shaping up and what do they expect, more importantly, rather most importantly, from the government of India. And without further ado, let me introduce our panelists for today. Yash Paryani, CEO and founder of Indian Gaming League, joins us on the platform. Vivek Adhia, Country Director, India Institute for Sustainable Communities, is also a part of our debate. Nicholas Bonline, co-founder, CEO, COO, I beg your pardon, and CMO of ISMA, and Sunur Kaul, co-founder, director, Origo Commodities, and that is India's fastest growing agri-technology company. And last but not the least, Dr. Anurag Gupta, chairman and editor-in-chief of the Business World and Exchange for Media Group. Yash, let me start by asking you a simple question. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, I can.
All right. Well, Diwali is upon us. Everything is back to pre-COVID days. We wake up to the front pages of newspapers talking about how petrol consumption is back to normal. In fact, it's exceeded what petrol consumption used to be during pre-COVID days. Pollution is back to normal. That means obviously people are going about their business. Our health is at danger again, at least in the northern part of the country. I'm not sure where you are right now. But are we really back in terms of what we expect from the economy, what we expect from this juggernaut we call the Indian economy? And how have you been doing in the past few months in the prevailing circumstances? Everybody has either a struggle story to say or a struggle they came upon story to tell. Which is yours?
Ours has been a bit of both. Being from the gaming industry, we've seen a huge boom after the lockdown. We had a huge rise in numbers and we saw a huge increase in the amount of time users spent on our platform. We had to increase our staff size significantly. We really had a great work from home experience where we increased and expanded our team. We realized we don't have to just, manage our team from one location anymore, and we can start hiring people from across the country. So that's helped us immensely. We've had a lot of ups and downs as well. I think one of the biggest setbacks in the gaming industry was probably the PUBG ban. That had a big impact on the overall community. Overall, it's been, I think gaming is going to grow in the next couple of years, especially in India. We see how the market is growing.
Okay.
And the youth recently become more active. So it's definitely been a good journey for us so far. Few setbacks here and there in terms of the PUBG getting banned, but overall it's been a steady journey.
All right, Anurag Batra is in fact reminding us that we are in the middle of the festive season. I can see pictures of gods and idols right behind him. Anurag, we've spoken about this on our show, to a number of people, that when the festive season comes, things will start to look up. Where do you think they are right now? Are they starting to look up?
Right now, first of all, Vineet, we have to be very cautious. It's a healthcare issue. It hasn't gone away. So I think in India, we have to be very cautious. Unlike Singapore or Hong Kong, where the cases are not even double digit and everything is normal, and people are more disciplined, things can be okay. But I think we still have a long way to go. I see it as mostly temporary demand around festive season. Green shoots in some industries are being seen, and as I keep referring to the K-shaped recovery, in certain sectors there will be a very upward trend, and certain sectors will continue to see a downward trend. Now hotels are typically at a 30% inventory or 30% occupancy, that's the right word. I think we have a long way to go. I don't think we can take current numbers and extrapolation of that the economy has improved. Yes, it's on the right track, but we have a long way to go. And in my view, it will take at least 12 to 6 months for it to come back. Let me bring in Nicholas. Nicholas, data is the new oil. Geo and all other platforms have seen a growth which is phenomenal. Tell us, how have you done in the last 7 months, and where do you see the Indian economy over the next 6 to 9 months?
You know, it's very interesting for us because we launched our first product, iSocial, which is our social media platform around this whole data environment which we're building, where we reward users for sharing their data. So we launched it post-lockdown, where we have seen really an increase of digital consumption. And what we keep seeing is that this amount of people that are exploring the digital world are really open to new platforms. They explore new platforms, they try out new platforms. Now, from our perspective, where we put a lot of effort on it is to make the platform very authentic. Meaning we want to, even though it is all digital, but we want to break that digital wall in terms of communication between us as the platform host and the individuals, especially in times like right now, to keep on socializing. And that's where we've been focusing very, very much on. And it's been a very interesting journey so far from a customer consumer onboarding perspective. What I can see is definitely this whole digital transformation from a consumer habit behavior to go full on online, full on digital. I mean, we can see this in e-commerce, as you have mentioned right now as well with the festive season. Everybody's going online. We have seen it in the US with Amazon, the Prime Day, huge numbers were recorded. And I can see a similar thing happening with the Indian customers over the next month, that there's so many different factors that are pushing the Indian consumer onto the online platforms. I mean, we have Jio with the investments from outside. We have Apple producing the iPhones in Chennai. And, you know, I just feel that there's so many factors that are pushing the user to go online. That's where I see India's future. Online.
When you talk of data, what is the incentive for these consumers or citizens to share their data? What's your business model? And what do you think, are people happy to give their data for a kind of piece of the action, for some revenue?
Yeah. And I would like to focus on the last question first. It was very interesting during the lockdown when we launched our first beta version, where people could simply share their location with us and they would get a reward for it. And it was very interesting because we could see that some users shared their location with us. They got their incentive for it, and we saw that they actually left their houses during the lockdown period a bit further than they should have. So this was a very interesting observation, right? Because it also showcases that there is no people are not scared to share their data. This was one of a very strong sign for us. So now moving forward to where we are today with our social platform.
And unlike Facebook and other social media platforms, the data is not being used for, hopefully, monetization. And if it is being used for monetization, the biggest debate is about data privacy. The second is about who owns this data. Is this my data or is it Facebook's data? And most importantly, if Facebook makes so much money from this data, then are consumers of that product or service entitled to some part of the data? So one is a choice of sharing information. Second is sharing it further. And third is whether the benefits of data accrue to that citizen. I think it's a debate that you will see happening more often, and hopefully there will be a conclusion. I did watch the movie The Social Dilemma, and I think it's a dilemma that we need to resolve because the scenarios that have come about were not envisaged when these networks were launched. I think we are dealing with a new abnormal, but data will play a very big in how economy shapes up and how products and services engage with data. Behind data is a huge purchasing power. Let me go to Sunur. Sunur, how have been the last 7 months for you, and what is the pivot you've taken in your business, and how does it augur for the future?
So, Anurag, for us, it's been primarily agri-commodity trade and trade finance, and essentially the warehousing to back it up. For us, the last 6 months, I think since March, has primarily been sustainability. Agri is one of the sectors that has been very sustainable, and it's been growing. Our endeavor was essentially to keep pushing, keep financing that sector, to get the liquidity in as much as possible, even though we are a small player in the bigger scheme. But I think what the government has come back with, if you look at the whole policy that they came out with on so you can divide it between what's monetary and what's creative, right? Monetary also, you can look at it, what they were doing for farmer support, what they were doing for infra, and creative, of course, is what I applaud the government for, was needed for the last 30, 40 years, essentially the Commodities Act, the Essential Commodities Act, which is no longer there. The market reforms, which included the mandi taxes going away, which if you use the mandi services, it's well and fair that you pay for it, but if you're buying outside the mandi, you're not supposed to pay. Which I think the current government, took a step forward. I think they made the whole agriculture in India as equivalent to what an open market in a developed country would be. But of course, I think the regulations and the laws have to be there to prevent or to protect the weakest link, which is the farmer. I think for us, the last 6 months essentially was getting the trade enabled. We wanted to make sure our customers are fairly divided. One side is the farmers, one side is the traders, third is the government. We wanted to make sure farmers' harvest is not wasted. So while we work with the government, we wanted to make sure that we got all the inwards. So we stock around 3 million tons of cargo. So we wanted to make sure that all the cargo came into our warehouses, nothing got spoiled by the rains or infestation, etc. We wanted to make sure in April, when the government announced that the stock had to move to PDS shops, all of our warehouses were equipped and our manpower was there to make sure commodity moved to the PDS for the subsidized food. And for the private trade, our main endeavor essentially was to make sure that from the farm to the consumer, or at least to the processor where we are active B2B, the commodity moved. And then essentially to get as much liquidity in place as possible so that we can finance this entire supply chain. The pivot, Anurag, I think that was the second question. Pivot has been for us, has been technology. I think for us, the reach and the penetration, which was supposed to be done at the farmer level, the trader, with mobility being slightly restricted. I think April and May were the biggest ones where the mobility was highly restricted. But since then, I think mobility has been eased out over time, and the traders and farmers are not afraid to be in the market, to be able to procure the goods or trade on it. But they still wish for a solution that they can do it without meeting people, without taking the chance of doing that. Farmers wish for a solution that they can sell on a price discovery platform. I think government is on the right track. I think they have e-market, or digital reforms as well, or e-market reforms. I think that's where we have invested the most time and money over the last 6-7 months to get the right reach to all of our consumers. And we are trying to build the solutions for the government, the farmers, and the traders, and of course the warehouse owners as well. Adoption of any new technology is what we have focused on, and we're trying to see how we can adopt as much as possible from some of the developed solutions as well, whether it's you look at trade finance, trade, warehousing, or even procurement from farmers at MSP as well. So that's been the pivot.
Government a couple of times. You said that in the last 2-3 minutes, you've at least mentioned the government twice or thrice. You think that the government has been helpful? Has it been a facilitator in this time of a downturn? Not specifically for you per se, but to the business community at large, MSMEs?
I think, Vineet, I think since the time we started about 10 years back, our goal was always to see a more open market platform, which was always restricted by, and I know there's a debate on the whole MSP issue, but I'm always for that you have to have the right framework so that you can have an open market, a more developed economy around the whole agriculture.
What's your feedback on the Farm Bill? Since
so
that is a hotly contested or talked about topic.
It is. I feel MSP or the Farm Bill has two aspects to it. Let's just talk about the MSP. So MSP, essentially, if you look at it, that's one aspect that was there to protect the farmer in case the market prices are not there. Now, you don't essentially need MSP as the only tool that the government can support the farmer, right? So in Madhya Pradesh, for example, there is a scheme called Bhavantar, right? Bhavantar is there. So wherever the market is trading below what the farmer needs, the government can still pitch in for the difference amount and can deposit into farmer's account. So if you look at MSP, it's a huge drain on government resources. The number of people you need to do government procurement, the infrastructure you need to stock all the commodity that you need can be reduced by private participation, and schemes like Bhavantar can come in where farmer is still protected and MSP is not necessarily needed. I'm saying it should.
We need the practical aspect of it. Just to build on what Sunur is saying is that in certain commodities and certain produce, the MSP was actually higher than the market price. So it put a lot of pressure on the government to be able to dole out a lot of sum. And
Right.
in some way, the government is making them, self-reliant. They may not happen self-reliant over the night, but over a period of time with this farm to fork policy, with better on go-to-market, with e-trading, and the government also stepping in to be able to fill in the gap when the price is substantially lower than the MSP. And I think it's a welcome thing. The only thing is now what government has said that must get implemented, but it's a progressive step without getting into the politics of it. Of course, the farmers have got used to MSP, which was more than the market price in certain categories. So of course the farmers will be empty the bill because they were getting the price higher than the market price. Let me bring in Vivek. Vivek, how have been the last 7 months for your own business? And over the last 7 months, individuals and organizations, faith, trust has gone up more in sustainability. Is sustainability a buzzword, or do you think organizations are really adopting sustainability as the part of their strategy?
Thank you, Anurag. And as at the Institute for Sustainable Communities, as an international organization working on environment, economic, and social challenges, the last 6-7 months have been busiest for us. This has been the time where there is this unique window of opportunity where we can come in as a collective stakeholder group, be it business, government, private sector, civil society organizations, experts, to recreate and build back better. Now is the time where we can sort of bring in the green recovery, we can bring in blue recovery, we can bring in social sort of equality and justice in all of this. And what we've seen is, I'll just give the local context in the Indian sort of example here. With Atmanirbhar Bharat, the stimulus that came out was really addressed at looking at immediate sort of benefits and addressing, liquidity and immediate measures. Now, what is not out there is also, something that the government has been trying to push beyond the stimulus package. And there is this unique motor replacement program. The government has this, renewable energy sort of goals, which brought in more employment and which was working well even during the lockdown and even during the pandemic. It was working very well. Our utilities, our electricity utilities, who generally are sort of struggling for profitability and benefits and stuff, they could install smart meters. They could install a huge amount of smart meters that has never happened before to bring up the billing efficiency to 97-98%, which was around 65-70%. So imagine when we are looking at this situation and this window of opportunity, sustainability comes in and it also helps build back in a better profitable manner. Again, when we sort of started with our economic growth and, heavy manufacturing focus, there was this always a debate about growth versus environmental considerations.
Clearly, Vivek, that debate is clearly skewed in, of course, we got to look after the triple bottom line,
yes.
Planet, purpose, and people. I think most CEOs, founders understand that, if they do not, if you live in Delhi, if air quality index is not important, I don't think what is important to life, right? Because breath is so clearly organizations understand that they need to look at the triple bottom lines. So I think that debate is over. The question I was asking is that post-COVID, we know that how important environment is and what an imbalance can do. So have organizations in India really started to weave in sustainability as part of the strategy? Let me build in, Tata's, when they built communities, when they built the steel plant in Jamshedpur, they nurtured the communities.
Yes.
without calling it a sustainable enterprise. Tatas are the most sustainable enterprise one can find. Mother Teresa, without being called a social impact entrepreneur, in my view, has been the world's first social impact entrepreneur. My view is every business needs to be a social impact business. There cannot be a separate category of businesses or tokenism towards social impact. So in that context, what I'm asking you is, do you see, for example, more corporates asking Vivek Adya, Vivek, can you help us build sustainability deeply into our strategy?
We're in the middle of this special broadcast in association with the business world. Vivek, in fact, Anurag asked you about the sustainability factor, and let's get that answer from you now.
Yeah, and post the pandemic, what we've seen is more and more businesses are walking the talk, and we've got a huge amount of interest coming in terms of how do we really get in there and sort of showcase and inbuilt the impact into our sort of overall strategy. So I've seen large brands tie up with, unique peers from their side and try and sort of work on the migrant workers side, or I've tried to see businesses looking at innovating on their models itself, where they integrate sustainability and try and build in more circularity, build in more sort of measures to engage with their extended value chain, bring in their suppliers together, help them improve on their environmental and social performances. So what we've seen, Anurag, you mentioned about Tata's, some of the top largest companies in India have been the sustainability champions all through, last many years now. But getting the MSMEs out there, getting their tier 1, tier 2 suppliers out there, this pandemic has shown that there is a possibility, and these large organizations are very actively partnering with their supply chains and also making sure the MSMEs are upping their game and they are integrating sustainability into their overall sort of response plans based on the COVID recovery.
Thanks, Vivek. That's very heartening to know. Let me go to Yash. Yash, we know that gaming, I have 2 young adult children, and one of them I think is born for gaming, and gaming has grown. But have the revenues also grown? Like in media, the viewership of everything is grown. I mean, if you look at an average news channel, it's grown by 40 to 60% viewership. Revenues right now are okay, but overall in media, revenues were tepid. So tell us, how has the business done? We know that gaming is a progressive business. It will only grow, whether it's real money gaming or it is gaming. Give us a sense of where we are headed. Yash?
So I believe that the viewership of esports is soon going to surpass even some of the most highest played sports and their sports counterpart. And I believe that when that happens, the revenues also will follow due to the advertising and the sponsorships that will come in. So it's definitely a growing industry that is going to grow extremely in the next couple of years, while we have smartphone mobile gamers increasingly in India. India probably has the largest smartphone gamers in the market in the entire world. So I think based on the viewership, on the activity of the gamers on the device, I think we're going to see a huge increase in the revenues as well to follow. We have seen that during the lockdown, an increase in the revenue consumption over the first couple of months. Now I would say it's a little more pre-lockdown levels, but during the lockdown we noticed that there was a huge revenue generated during the entire lockdown.
Let me go back to Nicholas again. Nicholas, whether it's gaming, whether it's media, data is increasingly playing 3 roles. One, data is playing the role of understanding, listening, figuring out what the trends are. Second, data is playing the role of targeting, which is go to market. And third, data is also playing the role to build solutions.
Yes.
Tell us, if there are smart entrepreneurs watching this broadcast, what are the opportunities in the data space and how can they leverage on them?
Well, you see, the data space, especially monetization of data from an individual perspective, and as you pointed out before, all the privacy aspect, whole Facebook scenario, etc. It's a fairly new approach to it, and it took us as ISMA over 2 years to find the proper go-to-market strategy of how to come up with a tool or software or an app or a program that can be in between the data creator and the companies, right? So that's how we build our ecosystem, where we believe over a period of time, we are going to implement more and more solutions for individuals where they can have the convenience which they're used to now, but with the whole data privacy, data protection, and monetization aspect. So to answer your question, I definitely believe in the data space, there are tons of opportunities ahead, but it needs a lot of figuring out still. It is a very, very niche space. I think touching on the sustainable approach before and the impact investments and impactful entrepreneurs, I think also in this direction, data should be treated as sustainable and ethical topic as well. It has to do with an impact. It is about your customer and about the people.
Thank you, Nicholas. I think data, we have to be very responsible for data. It's a double-edged sword, and we have to look at data as a fundamental right of citizens, of human beings. I think till now, because we didn't encounter this and we hadn't factored this in, I think we are seeing scenarios that are disturbing. Sunur, agri-tech is a hot area. And again, in the value chain, there are different players. I mean, you mentioned to me you're in agri-financing, you're in the logistics side, in terms of warehousing. So tell us, what are the opportunities that exist in agri-tech? I know you've taken some of them, and you're trying to build it across the value chain. But what are other opportunities that other entrepreneurs watching this broadcast can take back and hopefully build something that helps India?
I think there's been a lot of conversations, Anurag, around building a seamless technology which goes from farmer to essentially fork, and different companies participating in building that piecemeal, and then that builds a whole value chain. I think what's going to happen in the coming years is with the government coming forward and making farmers as the forefront of essentially the whole trade and the supply, a lot of emphasis is going to be on how you connect with the farmer, how you provide him a platform to be able to make, or you provide him a price discovery platform, how you make it more national. I think government initiatives like ENAM have made the mandis more digital, but I think you still need a private network to connect all of that. How do you make the trade seamless? How do you make essentially commodity move at the cheapest price? So the commodity quality is obviously being taken care of by a separate set of agtech companies which are already prevalent in India. But the cost per ton or cost per kg to move a commodity from farm to a processor and then processor to essentially to a brand and then to get it out is, I think, where technology will come in, because technology should not be there just for namesake. I think it has to get the transaction cost down. It has to make the transaction more secure. It has to make the transaction more transparent. I think if technology is going to enable that, Indian agriculture will obviously start to ramp up in terms of compared to some of the developed countries as well. I think that's where we lack. I think there are a lot of companies in India, and we can count them in hundreds and thousands, who are doing agtech, but they have a very piecemeal approach, and there is no common thread that unites them today. Government can play that role, but obviously it's a lot of work to get the data assimilated. I think I've heard of a couple of private companies, US giants as well, who are trying to assimilate that data in some kind of platform. They call it ABCD. I don't want to name them, but essentially they get it across. They're motivating agri companies.
All together. And
they're motivating agri companies to participate on the platform so that, as what Nicholas was saying, that data comes onto one single platform, and then the data comes back to the agri companies for utilizing it better. But unfortunately, that's not an Indian company which is doing it, and hopefully it was more of the government or an Indian company which was promoting it.
So I want to ask, Prime Minister talks of the Atmanirbhar Bharat, and I have no doubt in the next 18 to 24 months, we'll be in better shape than we ever were, thanks to the resilience of the Indian entrepreneurs. And I am sure the government of India will do even more enabling measures that support Indian entrepreneurs. But agriculture over the years had become a smaller part of the GDP. With what has happened in the last 2 months, do you see agriculture as percentage of the GDP growing, maybe reaching 30-40%? And if every services grows, manufacturing grows, and agriculture grows, we possibly will get closer to the dream of the 5 trillion economy. So what do you have to say that to Sunil?
So I think, Anurag, whatever is happening, whether the situation around the virus or quote unquote whatever is happening at the border or anywhere else, I think the motivation or encouragement to become Atmanirbhar, I think that quotation has taken a lot more strength in the people. Wherever I talk, I think whatever conferences we have had recently, all the big people of agriculture have spoken about becoming that Atmanirbhar over a period of time. But what's needed behind it is essentially still a lot of work. You need higher production still. I think even though so we focus on some of the commodities which are wheat and paddy. We still have to come out of that wheat and paddy culture and produce soybean, for example.
Soybean, we have to go to better kind of grains, super grains, kale,
So for soybean, for example,
for example, can we create quinoa here, right?
Yeah.
And again, most importantly, there is also the storage is a big issue. The amount of wastage we do of food grains, food products on account of
50 to 30%,
lack of cold storage is humongous. I mean, if we could just bring that food into the marketplace and make sure that there were transactions, it would enrich the life of the producer.
So 1/3, you aptly said it. I think 1/3. Everybody focuses on what happens at the farm. If there is a certain focus, what happens after the farm, between 20 to 30% is still wasted afterward the farm. So post harvest, there is still a lot of grain wastage, and in pieces. So it's not only at the FCI warehouses or private warehouses or elsewhere, what comes in the media, but across the value chain, in the trucks, while doing quality testing, the total quantum is still 1/3 of the crop. And if that can be saved, then essentially it's like a penny saved contributes to your penny earned. But I think the production is the main key for us to become Atmanirbhar. Not only for paddy and wheat, I think that culture has to change.
Move up the value chain and move
we
up
have to move up
agriculture. We have to move up. We have to produce, agriculture commodities which have a higher price realization in simple terms, and they may also solve some health problems. I mean, I don't want to do this is not a show on agriculture or food, but some of the wheat that some of our families eat is not necessarily good from a nutrition standpoint, because that's it was thrust upon us in the 60s when the Americans gave us free grains. So I think we have to move from wheat to other grains that are possible.
We have to look at other commodities.
Yash, if I had to talk to, if me and Vineet were to talk to you a year from now, what would have happened in the gaming industry? What would you have achieved? Give us a sense through some numbers.
So we would have expected a huge growth in the next coming 1 year. We believe that we're going to see more localized games, maybe a version of PUBG made by Indians over here. So we're going to see a huge amount of
people
games.
who play PUBG. So I've never played it, and I hope my children have never played it. But we never know. Never say never. But when you say huge, give us a sense of the numbers.
There were about 55 million active users monthly in terms of PUBG. So I think it's left a bit of a void, and people are looking for that, next game to fill in that void. There have been a few alternatives like Call of Duty, Free Fire, Fortnite, but ultimately it's still lacking. And I think people are waiting for 5G and a few other games that are under development right now. So we're expecting a lot of games and a lot more structure in terms of esports and the organizations and the rules around it. So there should be more clarity in 1 year from now.
Vivek, sustainability as a fabric of the organization. If the CSR spends, which are 2% of the profits, and they're taken on a 3-year average, as you know. Now this year the numbers of all companies, most companies, not all, would be lesser than their profits last year. I mean, there are companies that may do a little better than others because they're in sectors that helped us fight COVID. What will happen to the CSR activity? What will happen to the money that used to go in sustainability? Do you think it will impact?
We're in conversation with some of the best business minds and entrepreneurs of the country. And Vivek, before we took a break, Anurag once again had asked you a question. You were in the middle of answering him. Let's continue with that.
Thank you, Vineet. And Anurag, very pertinent question there. And what I've seen is that some of that CSR money and some of the focus that large businesses have put in on sustainability has been repurposed. And what I mean by this is, this is more now focused towards front end, tail end, tailpipe sort of projects and measures that work out on immediate reliefs. I'll just give the example. On the panel, we've heard about data, we've heard about agri-tech, and we've sort of, just building upon that. Large companies have been partnering with these two measures across the farm chain to say, for example, grow better cotton. There is this Better Cotton initiative where there has been a massive emphasis this year, and India has possibly grown sustainable organic cotton more than previous years in that sense. What is happening is, if you just look at the situation and the challenges that we are facing in, 2/3 of India is still at a huge water risk, and some of our cultivation efficiencies are much above the world average. In fact, cotton, the water used for cotton production in India is twice the global average. Now imagine if there is CSR money and if there is a measure that's been put out there to improve the efficiencies and to look at how the cultivation and how some of these commodities would be grown, we would possibly grow better, we would grow more sustainable, and we would grow more resilient and be the world leaders and put us in this very nice competitive spot out there, because we'll be able to do this at the cheapest cost as well. So the CSR funding has been repurposed and it's been going in the right directions, thankfully. And we've seen major sort of measures coming across the urban, farm, industry, environment linkages, if I may say so.
Thank you so much. Now, at this point, let me ask all of you two questions, and I want very specific, short, direct answers. I don't want maybe, we don't know, God knows. We'll ask our astrologer, not those kind of answers. One, I want to know, when do you see the Indian economy coming back in full bloom? 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, and why do you think so? Second, in the last 7 months, COVID and what has happened with COVID has changed our mindset. It has added new lines of thinking. So what's your top lockdown lesson as an entrepreneur? These are my two questions. Let me start with Nicholas. Nicholas, what's your top lockdown lesson?
Top lockdown lesson is definitely for me and for Aizma as a business, to be authentic with your customers, to break a wall, to have a direct line of communication. You are the business, you are the customer, and we talk with each other. There's nothing in between anymore.
Okay, and when do you see the Indian economy coming back in full bloom?
You said 6, 12, 18. I think 18 months.
6, 12 or 18. No? The people who said 5 years, the people who said 3 years. But I think they're being too cautious, in my view, pessimist. But what's your sense of when the economy will be back in full bloom?
Longer than possible, 18 months, I believe. And the reason why I'm saying that is because we are right now, and we can see it in Europe. I just spoke to my parents before this panel, and the second wave is hitting Europe very hard right now. The measurements, everybody's going back into lockdown, everything. The small businesses suffer again quite a lot. And I'm comparing this because in India, we are in a situation where we are kind of still in this first wave, everybody is still in this recovering. We haven't reached proper levels again. So I think because this will stretch more, we will be longer. It will take quite a while until all SMBs are coming back. Also, I think that there should be a lot of initiatives to support the vocal for local. And I've seen that, I'm comparing it a bit to Europe, where there were some initiatives and it did help some after the first wave, but obviously now with the second wave, everything stumbles again, right? So I'm a very big advocate for vocal for local as well, to support until we have.
We've had the best recovery rate in the world.
Yeah.
And if you talk about COVID-19 peaking, it's already peaked and gone in India. So, it's safe to say that there could be a potential of recovery.
Absolutely, there is a potential of recovery, no doubt, but I think it will still take a substantial amount of time until we are back in full bloom, full swing.
Okay, so Noor, your diagnosis of when the economy will be back and why, and what's your top lockdown lesson?
So I guess I'll give a background as to why I would give a number. What I'll give essentially, we fund small businesses. We work with a lot of the field staff, which is both farmers and traders. I've seen them being concerned about COVID in the initial couple of months. I've seen them brave it out over the last 4 or 5 months. I think they've got infected, they've recovered, and so given that, if that psychology I translate to some of the other businesses as well, both rural and urban, both put together, I would put my bets around 18 months as well. I think this is a new normal out there. People are getting used to it. Even if you see, as you said, total capacity close to 30%, I think the airlines coming back, the travel is coming back. I think while the virus may not go away, the vaccine would take time, but I think the new normal adjustment would be probably the 18-month time frame. In terms of the lesson, what you asked, Anurag, was essentially, I think realization has been what Nicholas says, one aspect is being connected. But how to be connected is the main lesson I think we have come across, which is technology. I think the adoption has been lacking in India, and what made everybody realize has been the COVID situation. I think that made everybody take a step back and see why they're not doing what they were supposed to do many, many years back. The maximum technology adoption I've seen across all companies, including ourselves, has been in the last 7 months. So whether it's as simple as in-house, as external as connecting to a farmer in Bihar, I think the maximum adoption at the most accelerated pace has been the last 7 months. I think that's been one awareness for us as well over the last 7 months.
Okay, Yash,
I strongly
getting revived in how many months?
I think the economy will probably be recovering sooner than we think. I think a lot of people have now adapted towards the new normal, and they're making the necessary changes or adaptations in their industry.
Yes, they're not going to cinema halls. There is a fear factor. People are not even coming to hotels or QSRs or restaurants. There is a genuine fear factor. So what makes you believe that people have accepted the new normal and everything will be hunky and dory?
Seeing how, like you said earlier, about pollution levels returning back to normal and the workspace, I'm seeing that even the traffic, everything has gone back to normal in that sense. And I believe that people are worried and they are going to be scared about COVID, but I think they're going to find ways around it and adapt. It may take still about 6 more months before we see a lot of more people being overcoming it, but I think a lot of people have found ways to adapt to the new normal, and another 6 months is when we'll probably see a recovery. I'm a little more optimistic.
And when do you think, what's your top lockdown lesson?
I think the adoption of technology has been one of the most important lessons, definitely, during lockdown. Everything from the way we communicate, and I think that's eradicated a lot of unnecessary travel and logistics that were not needed pre-COVID. And finally, we have moved on to cutting off that lag time. So things are getting a little more efficient. And that's one of the main things I would say that has been my take back, the adoption of technology.
Vivek, state of the economy, when do you think it will improve?
I would be more optimistic as well, and I think 12 months is a good time.
That was a Freudian slip. I hope it was just
12 months. 12 months. I think in a year we should be back to our full bloom, and the reason why I'm mentioning this is, we've been working with a lot of manufacturers, a lot of MSMEs, factories, and almost 70 to 80% of them are back to their full capacity. And people are restarting in a very unique manner, building in newer models and stuff. So I think the innovation that has gone into this COVID thing just gives me that confidence that we will be able to look at different business models. India became the second largest PPE manufacturer in no time at all. We could look at agro waste to produce apparel, and how do we sort of get into this? We could use technology. We could use different business models where hotels are offering fine dining and food delivery rather than the stay and hospitality and stuff. So I do think that all the entrepreneurial spirit of the country will help us get back on our feet in no more than 12 months. And my biggest lesson in terms of lockdown has been collaboration. And the way collaboration can bring about successes is unparalleled, because as an environmentalist, we've been grappling with various challenges, and everybody just says, not in my domain, not in my backyard, I can do only so much, or I will only do XYZ. But what if the other institution does not do it, other department does not do it? What if the other country does not do it? But in lockdown, I have seen that collaboration across levels, whether it's nations coming together, whether it is businesses, factories, workers and farmers coming together, or whether it is at the front lines where you've got the local health clinics and the corporators and the most granular level of machinery, government machinery and helpers coming together. We've been able to get the highest level of recoveries, as Vineet said, and if we can do that, that's only possible because we've collaborated on this initiative, on this challenge, without even considering not in my backyard, or I should not do this, or maybe it's not my jurisdiction. So that's my sort of 2 cents on the COVID thing.
Thank you so much. And my personal view is that 6 months after the vaccine is found, things should be okay. But the bigger question is, when will the vaccine be found? When it will be distributed? What cost it will be distributed? I think those are questions that I think ring in everyone's mind.
Yep.
Fundamentally, Indian entrepreneurs are innovative, resilient, and clearly they've used COVID to pivot, orbit change, and fundamentally question all the beliefs of their business and adopt technology to become relevant in this.
Right. Absolutely. Well, seems to be a technical glitch with Anurag's connection, but what he was trying to say is that it'll be all good. We are perhaps on a path to recovery. Gentlemen, on that note, thank you so much for being a part of this amazing debate. Wish you all the very best in these trying times.
For more such videos, subscribe to the NewsX YouTube channel, hit the bell icon.